All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have a lot of exciting sessions about data analytics, digital marketing, and many, many more. Make sure to download the VFast app on your mobile phone so you join the sessions much easier wherever you are. With that, chill for a few minutes and watch our video for exciting reminders before we begin the session very shortly. So we will see you in a bit. Okay, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Future Ready Workforce session. I am Yi Hong from Nestle Malaysia, and I will be your host for this session. Just some house rules to ensure a smooth flowing session today. Yeah. Do keep an eye on the chat box and make sure not to flood it with spams, guys. Don't, okay? We just want to make sure that you can catch important announcements and links on how you can engage us via Slido. So you can see in the middle box. Yeah. And also have your mobile phone with you on standby mode. On standby to scan the QR code on the top right corner of the slides so you can see career opportunities in data analytics, marketing, and sales across all Nestle markets around the globe. Okay, so please remember the house rules. Yeah, and do put in your questions on Slido. Right, so great. So I think we can, without further ado, let's begin the session. So allow me to introduce our inspiring keynote speaker for today, Amit Narain, Global Head of HR's Business Services at Nestle. As the Global Head of HR's Business Services in Nestle, Amit is responsible for employee experience, focusing on HR business processes and people analytics to support markets in taking informed people decisions. I'm so excited to actually hear from Amit about why organizations need to evaluate their working model and focus on skills that are relevant and who or what should be performing them and where will it be done. So with that, Amit, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Ian, and a very good morning and good afternoon to all of you. Well, in the next couple of minutes, my intent would be to give you a certain perspective about how the future is changing, what are the key shifts which are taking place, whether you talk about the work, the workplace, and the workforce. And something very interesting is the fact that, the future is still loading, to the fact that, we still don't know how the future will shape up. Most of the organizations in the last couple of years have gone through quite a roller coaster ride, like all of us as well. If you remember, a few years back, we used to talk about VUCA, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment. And to be honest, a couple of years back, and even now, we have all experienced what exactly VUCA really means. Having said that, the companies which really prepared well with regard to investing behind the capabilities or investing behind the tools, we're really doing great during these volatile environment as well. Whereas a lot of companies who took things for granted are today, as we speak, have become history. So it's really important that, as an organization, we start thinking about future preparedness, we start thinking about future ready. And it's really relevant to the extent that, to share an example pertaining to an FMCG context, you can go back to the previous slide, please. An FMCG context would be the fact that, when we talk about a channel of distribution, e-commerce really was one of the channel of distribution for the products. But what we have gone through during the pandemic, we realized the fact that pandemic has changed the consumer behavior. And slowly and gradually, e-commerce became one of the key sources or key channel for our FMCG products as well. And not only FMCG, but cutting across all different sectors. So actually the companies which invested behind this kind of a platform and building these kind of capabilities were the companies who were actually able to rally in cash during turmoil period as well. So that really gives a kind of a connotation to the fact that, if you're investing well in advance, you're preparing the organization for a future success, which I hope every company is really taking it very seriously, and it will only help us support to build a future better economy and better careers for people going forward. So if you can move to the next slide, please. When you talk about future ready, I personally feel it has three dimensions to it. One, if you can keep clicking, please, pertaining to work, because even when you talk about future ready, the dimension of work has changed. There is a lot of interface, there's a lot of technology, robotics, which have come in, which have really redefined the way we used to work previously and the way we work now and the way we will work in the future. Which also means the fact that this has an impact on the workforce in terms of really upskilling and reskilling our workforce to ensure that they are prepared for the future. And having said that, it's really, really important, friends, is that, when you talk about automation technology, it does tends to drive efficiency. But at the end of the day, it's more about the right mix of the workforce and technology together, and the capabilities of the workforce together with the technology is going to define the future of any successful organization going forward. More and more, we see that when you talk about the workplace, it is no more a place where you by default people come to work. It has more become a place where people come together to really collaborate and really meet each other for more as a social interface rather than a place to work where you come to 9 to 5 kind of a working hour. So the entire definition on the ambit of work, the workforce and the workplace, is undergoing a big change. And let's see what are the key shifts which are taking place around these 3 dimensions. If you can move to the next slide. So when you talk about the workforce, workplace, and the work, if you actually realize the fact that there is a lot of interface pertaining to digitalization and automation that have taken place. And to the extent that the paradigm, the shift has become really huge and exponential because, we always thought that the technology will definitely drive high level of growth, but we never expected that growth would be so exponential. And especially thanks to pandemic, that the growth has been exponential. And really the companies have taken it extremely seriously that they need to run behind and make the organization more digital and automated savvy to ensure that we are preparing the organization for the future, to ensure that they are able to reach to the consumers through different platforms, through different channels, etc. So in a way that the ways of working or the model of working has really undergone a big change. And more so, if you see, most of the progressive companies are investing behind digitalization and automation, not only to create a better customer or consumer experience, but also to create better employee experience. And having said that, it helps us to drive this agenda. If you can move back to the previous slide, please. The previous slide, please. Yeah, so while the slide is coming, just to give a perspective also, what you see is the fact that there have been a lot of changes that have taken place in terms of the upskilling and reskilling the workforce. And it is really estimated that almost like 50% of the workforce will require a reskilling because of interface of technology, because of the model changing and the business model changing, because the economical shifts which are taking place in the external world. All these will lead to a big shift in terms of preparing the workforce for the future. And having said that, in certain markets, in certain economies, there is a shortage of labor as well. When you are interfering automation to substitute workforce, you're also looking at how can you redeploy these workforce into some other jobs. And that will define in terms of the upskilling and reskilling strategy for the company. More and more you see that, if I go further down in terms of the talent marketplace, if I talk about gig economy, most of the progressive companies are no more talking about full-time employment, are no more talking about really headcount, but they are more talking about unbundling the concept of job into more tasks. And they're talking about how can they redeploy these tasks where the skill set is. So which means the fact that most of the progressive companies are looking at driving aspects around talent marketplace so that they can leverage internal capabilities, internal skill set. At the same point in time, this is an era that you will see more and more aspects around freelancer really expediting, because this is more around the work moving to talent rather than the talent going to the work. So that's going to be a key shift that we see. The hybrid ways of working, I don't have to elaborate much on this one, but just to set the context that people are, and the organizations are also looking at providing more flexibility to the people so that they can have a good work-life balance. At the same time, how can you ensure that they're able to provide a good quality time, not only to work, but also to the family, which has led to the fact that, hybrid will be the ways of working going forward. And more we see many examples like this across the industry, that hybrid would be the ways of working. Something very interesting, and from an HR point of view, I would say, is that when you talk about business or people leadership, I think more and more, most of the organizations are looking forward to people leaders, because if you would be defining the to be organization where people would be working from either home or working from office, it's going to be a combination. How can a leader really ensure that the leader is able to connect with the people the way the leader used to connect in office, the same way the leader will have to connect with the people who are working remotely as well. So most of the progressive companies are looking for leaders who are really exemplary, who are inspiring, who are able to connect with the people, irrespective of distance, location, or by means. Even it should be exactly the same way while you're talking to people face to face. A virtual interaction should exactly give you the same kind of feel, and which really creates a lot of emphasis. How can we build future leadership also in the organization? I have already talked about the role of the office, which we all know is going to shift, and it's not going to be by default a place for work. But something pretty interesting is that when you're developing the hybrid ways of working, the work-life balance also tends to get impacted, because there is a blur or boundary between the work and the home. And typically it does tend to impact the health and well-being of the people, and our employees are becoming much more health conscious. So it's really important that you bring health also as an important agenda, as a part of the overall strategy for the company. So I'm just saying, this is just to give you a glimpse about some of the key shifts or dimensions which are changing when it comes to the workforce, the workplace, and the work. And before I talk about what are the key shifts or how the work and the workforce is evolving, maybe I move to the next slide, please. So what is the future of, what is a future-ready workforce? Maybe it would be worthwhile to hear from all the participants. What do you feel about this future-ready workforce around these options? Over to you guys. Well, I do see a key shifts happening in terms of your perception around the future-ready workforce, and you're absolutely right that it's going to be a mix of everything. Whether you talk about skill-focused, the rate of change, continual learning, or a mix of gig, robot, and regular employees all. So in a way, it's good to see that all these dimensions will be a key shift which will be taking place in the evolution of the workforce and the work. So let's move to the next slide. So thank you for your participation. I think it gives a good insight. So if you actually see, one of the Greek philosopher, Heraclitus, once said that the only thing which is going to remain constant is going to be change. And really, friends, what we have gone through as individuals, as organization, that change will always be a constant factor in our day-to-day work, in our day-to-day life. And it's really important that we start looking at the key shifts or the evolutions which are taking place in the arena of work and the workforce. I remember, when we were just starting our career, it was more around that we were looking at the checkpoint was how mobile a talent was, and whether the talent was ready to move to any location where the work was available. Today, the arena has just reversed, and we do experience this happening. Is the fact that we used to hear about the work traveling to talent, but the speed of change, thanks to the technology and to COVID, the speed of change has really evolved quite a bit. to the extent that we do see a key shift that the work is really going to talent, irrespective of the geography. So it's actually become very geographic agnostic, and mobility, which used to be one of the key areas of focus for any organization, it is also becoming more blurry. So that's one of the key things that we see. A few things which we also observed is the fact that, it used to be job-based, whereas as it is the evolution we see is that the jobs are getting unbundled, and more people are looking for more a shift happening from job-based to more skill-based. And some of the skills which will define the future is going to be, very common, irrespective of the industry. The third bit is around the knowledge base, because most of the companies used to evaluate people in terms of what kind of experience and knowledge an individual possesses. Whereas today, most of the progressive companies are looking for people who are pretty high in terms of their learning agility. And that's a big shift that we see taking place now. So more and more, whether you are working for a company or whether you are thinking of starting a career, it's really important that we start looking at how can we spend some time in terms of enhancing our own skill set and our own capabilities to prepare for the future. And that would be my submission to all the aspirants who are trying to start their career in any of the organization. More and more, if you see from a process, everything was very process driven previously. Now, most of the companies, and there is a concept of bionic companies, which is looking at the right mix of driving process clubbed with efficiency. Because, these are the companies who would like to leverage a good combination of technology, a good combination of skill set together. And remember, it's not that, in the to-be era, everything would be driven by just robots or would be just driven by technology. At the end of the day, it would be a combination of technology and the right skill set. So in order to, if I was an aspirant and if I was preparing for starting a career, I would have definitely looked into what are the changes or what are the key changes which are taking place in the skill set of the future, and ask ourselves whether am I as an individual ready to address or will be an attractive proposition for any progressive company or not. More and more, as I mentioned, is the fact that, gone are the days that companies will talk about fixed term contract, but more or less people are looking for how they can really leverage from a fixed term contract to more contract based approach where they can really leverage the gig workforce which existed. Somewhere, nobody imagined that the speed of change would be such fast and such drastic. But the good part is the fact that it's really happening, and we really don't know how maybe 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years from now, how things will change further. So it's better that we really start looking at what will make us as a viable proposition, as a viable candidate for any progressive organization. What are the key shifts in the skill set that we need to bring in ourselves? Where do I need to invest behind my own learning? Would be really important at this juncture where you people are going to start the career in any organization. So I move to the next slide, please. When even World Economic Forum and various other studies have really revealed the fact that, it is estimated that by 2025, almost like 50% of the workers will need reskilling. And almost 97 million new roles will emerge adapted to this dynamic, because what was existing or what was relevant in the past, because of the exponential changes which are taking place, might not be relevant in the future. So we will definitely see a lot of shifts taking place in the to-be organizations of any organization, whether it's Nestle or any other external, because people would like to invest behind the skill set. People will like to invest behind which will drive better approach in terms of connecting with the end consumer, which will drive better approach in terms of generating more revenue, which will drive better approach in terms of driving the agenda of growth. So if the company is moving in that direction, it's also the progressive companies are investing behind upskilling their workforce and really defining a learning organization where they take learning, as a kind of day-to-day life and a kind of a ways of working rather than just like one training program. So definitely, it would be really, really important that any organization which is talking about future, which is talking about, I would say, facing any kind of crisis or preparing for any kind of crisis, would definitely has started already venturing into upskilling and reskilling the workforce, or have really started looking into what more can they do to really upskill the workforce. So we move to the next slide, please. So maybe the question to the group again, I see a participation of 471 people who have joined. What do you feel, what do you feel would be the future skill set that would be required to ensure that you're ready for the future, or the requirement with the organization will have from a future point of view, from a ready skills? So over to you guys. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And it's really evident to the fact that, few of the future skill set which will define the success of any organization or any individual in terms of their own enhancement of skills would be around analytics, because that's going to be extremely critical, would be around digital agility, would be around, a complex problem solving, creativity. And I'm really amazed to see these kind of valuable inputs on the screen, because if I move to the next slide, if you see some of the great work which was done by esteemed organizations like PwC, like World Economic Forum, is exactly talking about what you people have just mentioned. The fact that, analytics, digital, cognitive thinking, critical thinking, complex problem solving would be some of the key shifts or the skill set that would be required for any organization going forward. And it's really, really important that, we as individuals really realize it now, that how can we start investing, whether even if you're working for an organization, some of the key questions which I myself keep asking is that, am I already good enough in terms of, if I need to be digitally agile, what more do I need to do to really sharpen my skill set? And those are the fundamental questions which the organizations are also asking to themselves, that how can we prepare the workforce for the future? And those are the fundamental questions most of the people, an individual, an aspirant, or a ranker, or a person who's already working in the company, are also looking at how he or she can really invest behind these kind of skill sets, so that they're ready when the for the future. And when the organization is talking about the to be scenario, we do have people with the right skill set. So, some of the key things which you see, whether you talk about PwC, World Economic Forum, or the Deloitte study, which has taken place, cutting across different industries, different sectors, the skill set which is visible here are the skill set which will define the future of any organization. And trust me, friends, I think gone are the days that no more the organization can work in a scenario of a silo mentality. Because if an organization has to be successful, it has to ensure that these silos are broken, and it is more cohesive team which is coming across with the right skill set, irrespective of the specialization, or irrespective of the stream in the organization where you're working. So it's really critical that how can we look into these aspects? How can we start looking into investing behind these aspects to really ensure that we are ready for the future? And thus, that makes us moves to the next slide, is the fact that, most of the companies are now moving and shifting the gear of becoming a learning organization, because learning new skill needs to be continual. And if I move to the next slide, please. So if you can actually see is that, learning experiences that fit the workforce day-to-day life has to be experiential, has to be work integrated, has to be well blended, and it has to be lifelong learning approach. And good part is the fact that you do see that a lot of interfaces from a technology point of view has also started coming in, which has made learning really available at every point of time to every individual, irrespective of whichever stream you're working at. For example, I do remember that even for sales, and I'm talking about maybe 10 years back, even for salespeople, it was a classroom training, which was really essential for them to expose how a sales operation works in an organization. But today, the shifts have taken place, and to more a kind of a bite-sized learning or mobile app learning, which has become a learning on the go, which is going to be a kind of a way forward. And it's not really a wow anything. It's a must to have now. So those are the kind of shifts which are taking place, and you will really find, this is some of the findings that we got from LinkedIn, is the fact that almost like 79% of the people feel motivated when the learning is personalized. And the same logic goes to any consumer also, is the fact that the moment you create an experience, a consumer experience, which is much more personalized, it really, the probability of that product selling is higher. Exactly the same approach you should replicate when you talk about experiential learning or personalized learning. And that's what the organization have to really understand and get into slightly more depth, rather than just talking about the 10%. Second is almost like, 54% of the people spend more time learning if the courses are aligned to their career goals or career progression. So it's really important for any progressive organization to really understand the aspirations of the people and define and design the career or learning journey in a way that the person is able to correlate those learning journey in line with his or her own career aspiration. And last but not the least is typically learning is highly regarded as a kind of a value proposition for any aspirant before she decides to join any organization. So it's really, really important that organization takes learning as a must to have strategy in terms when they're looking at defining the future ready organization. So these are just some of the key highlights. I just thought I'm aware of, conscious of time as well. So I quickly move to the next slide, please. So let's quickly run through in terms of what progressive organizations are doing to decide the future ready workforce. And I just wanted to share some of the examples in the context of any progressive company, and the same applies for Nestle as well, is the fact that what most of the companies are looking into is defining the future workforce planning or strategic workforce planning, where people are looking into not only the demand and the supply side of the workforce, but at the same point in time, what are the key priorities for the business, whether the company is ready with the right skill set or not. So on the right side of the screen, what you see is the future skill assessment, where typically a progressive HR in any organization really sits down with the business to understand what would be the future ready skill set, which is required to ensure that we are able to be able to contribute and run the agenda of growth and drive a better value proposition for our consumer. And are we prepared as an organization or not? And do we have the right skill set or not? Is something which is really being discussed at a high, I would say quite in depth, to define the future strategy for the workforce in terms of using the model, which is called the 4B model. Now, friends, as I speak, this has evolved to 6B as well. But just to give you a perspective, the 4B is around what is the kind of capabilities that we need to build within the organization? What kind of a skill set do we need to build within the company? Is the company prepared to build this? Will it take time? Or it is doable? If it is not doable for any company, then the next approach happens to be buy. And typically, most of the companies historically or traditionally have been jumping from, if build is not an option, immediately jump to buy. And my humble submission, which I keep saying to every organization, is the fact that before we jump to buy, it's really important to evaluate the borrow aspect as well, because there is a huge opportunity to really leverage when you talk about leveraging the freelancers or the gig economy as such. So, and last but not the least is around the bot. So just to give you a perspective, for example, we are also in the process as a company evaluating and coming around with more advanced tools and technologies to really understand what will be the future ready skill set and how can we really integrate the 4B modeling as a part of our business strategy going forward. And more what you see is the fact that when you talk about the bot today, a situation has arrived, the fact that if Amit is doing 10 tasks, through artificial intelligence, I can really talk about the fact that out of the 10 tasks, how many tasks can be really automated so that Amit as an individual can be upskilled or reskilled, and Amit can start contributing to some other portfolio rather than his previous job. So those are the more, I would say, advanced approach which are taking place in the external world. And it's better that any progressive organization realizes it now rather than later. And more so, I would not say that strategic workforce planning is something that should happen once in 3 years or once in 5 years, but it should happen on a regular basis, because the external environment is so dynamic and is changing so fast that you need to keep assessing your future ready workforce on a regular basis. So this is something extremely critical for any progressive company. So we move to the next slide, please. So my question again to all of you would be that, what do you feel would be the future traits for any organization to attract the future ready workforce? And over back to you guys to have your inputs. So thank you for sharing your thoughts around it. Definitely, I do see hybrid, as I discussed, is going to be the way forward for any organization, because that is something that we have learned from COVID, which has changed, which has brought a new dimension to most of the employees, and this is going to remain as a new ways of working. I do see some of the comments around the culture, because culture also tends to serve as a foundation, and that's something which will also is going to be extremely critical in terms of for the motivation and for the retention of critical skill set in the to be scenario. If you move to the next slide, please. So thank you very much for your inputs, friends. So I would start off with, if you move to the next slide. Yeah, I would start with the traits, starts with the foundation. And the foundation is around the purpose for any organization. And when you talk about the purpose, friends, it's more about why an organization exists and what motivates them. When you talk about the values, that's the second critical aspect of any foundation, is around what are the guiding force for any organization. Because truly, if the purpose of the organization and the values of the organization are really understood well and practiced well by any employee on a daily basis, trust me, friends, we will create an ecosystem, an organization which is driven by purpose and guided by values. And that, to me, is the culture for any organization. So it's really important, and my humble submission to all the aspirants who are looking for starting a career in any progressive company, organization, is the fact that please do correlate your value system with the value system of the organization. Please do correlate your purpose with the purpose of the organization and for the reason the organization exists. Because if you are able to filter the first milestone around purpose and value, trust me, you are heading for a successful career wherever you would like to start your journey with. So that's extremely critical. And that's one of the reasons why in Nestle, we truly put people in the core of everything that we do, surrounded by a clear purpose and a clear value system, where we would like to really, extract the real potential of food, enhance the quality of life, not only for today, but for tomorrow and for generations to come. That's the purpose. And the value system is very simple, is that we truly have the value system around respect for self, respect for others, respect for diversity, and respect for the future. And the moment you have the purpose and value system are clear, that's the organization that you should really aspire to be a part of. And if you move further in terms of just to have the foundation, solid foundation being built, the second aspect, which is really important, is that for any progressive company, they need to look into, if you move to the next slide, please. Once you have the foundation clear, the foundation has to be clubbed with the people experience, with the right balance of work and mind space. And friends, here I'm talking about that as organization, we really need to realize the fact that there has to be a right balance between work and the mind space, because more and more you see creativity or innovation is going to be really critical for any future-ready organization from a skill set preparation. So it's really important to have a self-introspection on these aspects, that are we providing the right mind space to our people so that they can really think beyond the daily work, they can really think and contribute towards the future. So it's really also important that we really look into the different touch points or the moments that matter in the employee life cycle, whether you talk about right from recruitment, onboarding, engagement, development, progression in your career, or when a person finally decides to leave the organization, what are the kind of experiences we are providing? Because at the end of the day, if we as an organization take these experiences extremely important and critical and a must to have, I'm quite confident of the fact that the skill set that we are looking to develop for the future, the skill set that we would like to retain for the future, are the skill set that we will really like to built in from, and to ensure that they start contributing towards the progress and growth of the organization. So it's really, really important that we have a kind of a psychological safety net for our employees to ensure that they are allowed to take that risk, they are allowed to experiment, they are allowed to learn from the failures, and they are allowed to experiment and really come out with really out of the box thinking. So these are some of the key, I would say, fundamentals which most of the progressive organizations are currently looking at, same as that applies to Nestle. And we are very serious in terms of driving employee experience as a core agenda of our people strategy also. And I'm quite sure the fact that, the way things are going, we are up for a good game. We are up for a solid, I would say, progressive paradigm shift. And we are really, this is one of the reasons why Nestle as an organization has been in existence for more than 150 years. And still, we are ready to bring this kind of a mindset within this company. Itself talks about how core and how do we put people in the core of everything that we do. So with this, I move to the next slide and my last slide, which is just to set the perspective that we are in the process of making the organization future ready. And we welcome all the key talents to be a force for good, because this is the kind of platform that we can provide for all youngsters to really learn, experiment, and enhance your skill set. And as I mentioned, we are really serious in creating a lifelong learning as a part of our overall strategy also. So with this, thank you very much for this opportunity and for this interaction. Maybe I take it on from here for any questions, any clarifications, which I can help support with. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amit. It's really a great insights from you from a future ready workforce perspective. But really appreciate all what you have shared. And because of the time restriction, we are only allowed to pick up 2 questions. Yeah. So let me share the questions with you. The first question is, what differentiates Nestle from other technology organization for digital professional or technologists?
Great question. So thanks for asking this question. And my answer would be the following: is that, as I mentioned, that Nestle has been in existence for 150 years plus, and the good part about the fact is that we have also undergone in terms of a lot of changes as an organization. We have gone through a lot of ups and downs. We have adapted ourselves. We have looked into all the critical aspects. And something pretty interesting is the fact that in spite of being 150 years old as an organization, we have already started creating a kind of startup mindset within the organization. And that's one of the reasons why we are taking up this agenda about the future ready so seriously, not only about experimenting, allowing people to experiment, but also talking about giving them the bandwidth or the mind space to really think beyond. And I personally feel that, the management is also really serious about this agenda, about digitalization, about analytics, because we truly feel that these are going to be the future enablers. Of course, the good part, what Nestle brings vis-a-vis any tech company, is the fact that, maybe a technology company is more talking about creating advanced platforms, but Nestle Nestle as an organization, we not only talk about getting these platforms, but also the correlation of these platforms to the end consumer. We can really see end-to-end journey of a particular innovation till what's the impact on the end consumer. So that's a biggest advantage that we as an organization can provide to really have a better perspective and I would say a well-rounded, a well-blended approach to any employee who decides to join Nestle. So that would be my answer to this question.
Great. Thank you, Amit. And just another question, the last question. What are your plans for training of future leaders of digital FMCG companies like Nestle, like making Nestle online training for every employee?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And to be honest, as a company, one of the key things that we are looking into is really creating exemplary leadership in the organization, where we would like to create an inspiring and disruptive leaders, where they provide the psychological safety to the people, because it's not only about attracting the best talent, but how we as a company are able to retain, develop, and engage these talents is going to be extremely critical. So it's really important that that we not only keep attracting digitally savvy or analytically high bend of mind of talent from outside, but also how can we really build in these kind of capabilities in our leadership and in our future leadership. So that's something that we are driving a lot of intervention at an organization level, whether it's the work which has been done by the digital acceleration team. Whether we are talking about aspects around reverse mentoring, where we are trying to get more people with advanced, the recent know-how, the youngsters, they are rather applying and teaching the baby boomers or Gen X of the organization. So we are pretty open to this, and I think this has already started happening in our organization like Nestle, which automatically talks about the fact that we have a right balance of being a traditional company at the same time having the mindset of a startup. So yes, leadership is really going to be the key for us. The leaders are keen to have these kind of talents in joining the organization, and leadership is behind this agenda very, very clearly. Yeah. So that would be my answer. Anyhow.
Thank you so much, Amit, for answering 2 of the big questions that I think most of the participants are really keen to know from your point of view. So, and definitely we thank you so much for sharing your experience with all of us here. And a huge thank you to everyone who participates in this session. We hope that you enjoy and even learn something, some great insights from Amit. Especially he's an industry expert, and be inspired by his sharing. So don't forget to catch the next session today, which is Oha Vislobodzka and Mark Castillo, as they will talk about digital acceleration at Nestle, how integrated marketing and IT teams support the journey of our markets and brands. Okay, you surely don't want to miss this. So please go to the chat box and click on the link that it can direct you to the next session. Or if you want to take a look at the agenda again, so feel free to go to the agenda page and click on the session as well if you would like to join. Okay. If you miss any of this session, don't panic. Really, we have all the recordings ready, and will be up soon for your personal recapping. Okay. And of course, we will always like to hear feedback from you. So please share your thoughts about today's Nest Level session and tag us in LinkedIn with hashtag Nest Level 2022. Okay, have a good day, everyone, and we will see you in the next session. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.